When you read a book, the author's thoughts resonate with your thought process, and one arrives at a horizon of hope. We may not be there, but definitely can reach there. Breaking the Mold by Raghuram J. Rajan and Rohit Lamba aroused similar thoughts of hope in my mind. The quest to see India as a developed, prospering nation, combating poverty, combating the poor state of living of people led me to read this book. It might sound queer that I sat with Breaking the Mold on one side and Arthashastra, book by Kautilya, on the other. Curious mind wanted to find the context in which economics and politics was planned in 2nd century BCE vis-a-vis now. Centuries ago, Kautilya emphasized the importance of education, and centuries later, Raghuram J. Rajan and Rohit Lamba talked the most about quality education, improving the level of primary education for the poor, skill development and meaningful education for the young, and the vision of having top universities in our nation. Why can we not attract the best talent in the world by having the best universities of the world? The power of education can change this nation. This quality education has to reach to those 81.35 crores who are being provided with free food grains. This quality education can enable them to walk the path of success and pick themselves and our nation from poverty. Then they would not need free ration, and then the government would invest in long-term plans for the nation and not freebies for the election. Please be reminded, India is one of the youngest nations, and we start now, probably 10 to 15 years down the line, the effect of quality education will start to show on this population, dependent on freebies. Quoting from the book Breaking the Mold, Raghu recalls a joke that the South Korean executive director at IMF told him. The finance minister was once on a trip to Seoul. In the South Korean finance minister's office, the Indian finance minister asked him the secret of Korea's success. The Korean minister pointed to a set of thick black tomes lining the shelf behind. "It is all in there," he said. The Indian finance minister went closer to read their titles and laughed and said, "Why, these are our 5-year plans." Pat, came the response. "Yes, but we implemented them," announced the dissolution of Planning Commission and its replacement by a think tank called Niti Aayog. Have we really seen substantial breakthroughs in the last 10 years since the constitution of Niti Aayog? Why rule out things which may have some significance in the past? The most fascinating aspect of this book is that we can do it. All we have to do is break the mold. We indeed have to break the stereotypes, our myopia, our protectionism towards certain companies, crony capitalism, a lack of long-term planning, and most importantly, a lack of vision for educating every child and youth of this nation. Quoting from the book Post-Independence, India's greatest failing has been its inability to give all its children a head start. It is our moral responsibility and will be a necessary foundation for economic growth. We need to shift our focus from subsidies and transfer it to focusing on providing public services like quality education and healthcare. The annual Status of Education report highlights the learning gaps in our educational system. In 2018, less than 30% of students in grade 3 were able to achieve grade 2 level reading and writing. A 2023 report of VBox states 50% of college graduates in India are unemployable. There is a lot to be done, and we must start by getting our priorities right. For example, Micron Semiconductor plant, agreed upon in June 2023, intended for a site in Gujarat. It is a $2.75 billion investment, out of which 70% subsidy is coming from central and Gujarat governments. This is expected to create 5,000 jobs. It is 3.2 crores for a job. These are not sophisticated logic chips that empower your phone. This is only assembly, not testing and R&D. Can you imagine the wastage and the lack of sight for creating jobs through companies who are totally dependent on our subsidies? Quoting from the book, that $2 billion or rupees
16,500 crore
is a grant to foreign company for crumbs. It is over a third of a central government's entire annual budget of rupees 44,000 crores for university education. Raghu clearly emphasizes on focusing on services and the concept of smile curve. In business management theory, the smiling curve is a graphical depiction of how value added varies across different stages of bringing a product onto the market in an IT-related manufacturing industry. The concept was first proposed around 1992 by Stan Shi, the founder of Acer Inc., an IT company headquartered in Taiwan. According to Shi, in the personal computer industry, the two ends of the value chain, conception and marketing, command higher values added to the product than the middle part of the value chain, manufacturing. If this phenomenon is presented in a graph with the y-axis for value added and x-axis for value chain, the resulting curve appears like a smile. We Indians need companies which are in the two ends of the value chain, product development and conceptualization, and branding and value addition. The capability of earning more lies here. We need to improve the environment for businesses in India, creating enabling framework that help business flourish, and combat the challenge of over and under regulation. The book continuously emphasizes the need for education with the question, how do countries grow rich? What does it mean for a country to be rich? Broadly speaking, richer countries produce more economic output per person. So the key to greater income is greater production per person, also called productivity. For increasing productivity, labor needs to be educated and trained so that human capital improves. It should be supported with more equipment. The equipment has to get better with technology, and for that institutions have to be created and strengthened, all with the aim of enhancing production and productivity. So how has India fared so far? Add up all incomes paid for goods and services in the country and we get gross domestic product. Divide this GDP of the country, total produce of the country with total population, and we get income per person. In 1961, India's per capita income was $86. Same time, South Korea was $94 and China $76. India's per capita income today is $2,300. China is $12,500 and South Korea at $35,000. One of the primary reasons India came late to exporting the manufactured goods only began because India began its reforms only in the 1990s. The liberalization of economy of India by Dr. Manmohan Singh and the government of Narasimha Rao. The question then arises, why has India not built a global manufacturing presence? India did not do well in improving the standard of living of its people as East Asian growth leaders, probably because we did not build a strong global manufacturing presence. India's total economic output today is where China was in 2007. India is 16 years behind China. Reasons for India being left behind and China doing well. Communist regimes in the 20th century typically invested heavily in basic education, partly because of the emphasis on equality and perhaps widespread literacy allowed common people to get educated in communist scriptures. India did not take off in such a way because average levels of Indian education, especially in rural areas, was much lower. It takes basic level of literacy, numeracy, and basic accounting to run a small business. India invested more on education only when liberalization gradually highlighted the need for more educated workers. India's inability to put a vast majority of its children through compulsory primary school in the first 4 decades of our independence was rooted in caste and hierarchy. As India liberated in 1990s, average years of education moved up rapidly in population, so that India was only 1.5 years behind China in 2015. How can India succeed? We are better in India's human capital to produce ideas and creativity. We have to improve the quality of learning experience for our children. Quoting Delhi example, the government of Delhi employs Anganwadi workers and volunteers to conduct door-to-door survey to assess the number of dropouts. Delhi model has invested in participatory process that engages and empowers all stakeholders, students, parents, teachers, headmasters and principals. Delhi is one of the richest per capita can spend on schools. Women participation in labor force should also increase. Women labor force participation in 2022 to 2023 was 18.8%. Rather than waiting, let us move forward towards taking India's future in our hand. There is something you can do differently. Some new idea you can implement that can make us all better. Eventually, a new leadership will emerge that sees what you are doing and weaves it together into a new vision. In the meantime, let each of us be the change we want to see. The choice to act is ours and ours alone. We cannot have any more excuses. Don't wait for the leadership. Get your mind out, get creative. If you can, educate the children of the country and let our nation just march towards much more success.